Clerk, a reading of item number 46.
An ordinance repealing the Louisville Metro Code of Ordinances, LMCO, Section 115.170 to 115.182, and replacing them with Sections 115.170 to 115.196 regarding massage facilities as amended. Read in full.
Okay. Let's see here. Item 46, that came out of Councilman Symes' committee. Councilman Symes, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is item 46, correct?
It is, sir.
And this is produced by Councilman Hudson. I'd like to give him the floor, please.
Councilman Hudson, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. So over a year ago, 2 massage facilities opened in my district within a quarter mile of a church, a school, a daycare center, and each other. I immediately started getting calls from my constituents asking about how they were allowed to open. After a short investigation, I learned that Louisville has had a requirement on the books for massage facilities to be licensed by the Department of Health and Wellness since 1974. Yet neither of these facilities had a license. 15 years ago, Metro government just stopped issuing licenses. The ordinance wasn't changed. The city just stopped issuing the license. This lack of oversight and lack of accountability made Louisville an attractive place for illicit businesses to come because they knew no one was going to look at them. These illegitimate businesses are heavily involved in human trafficking. So in cooperation with the mayor's office, over the past 13 months, I've led a task force comprised of over 40 people from various backgrounds, including local, state, and federal law enforcement, industry, community, local and state government, the Kentucky Attorney General, the Jefferson County Attorney, and many more. As we begin the discussion tonight, it's important to keep this one thing in mind. This ordinance is singularly focused on stopping human trafficking, period, full stop. I know that there are people in the legitimate massage industry that have concerns about this ordinance and want an exemption or an amendment or for it to be held. Let me remind you that this ordinance does not, I repeat, does not introduce new requirements for a facility license. Existing businesses have been getting a free pass for 15 years. That law has not changed. This ordinance simply makes it tougher for the illegitimate businesses to operate in Metro Louisville. And let's not look over the fact that this ordinance, if this ordinance gets voted down tonight or held, the existing legislation is still in effect. Bless you. Licenses for facilities are required. Having said that, I am sympathetic to the concerns of the legitimate business owners. I've met with or attempted to meet with every person that has reached out. I met with the one person that everyone in the industry considers to be the subject matter expert. She spoke tonight at the beginning of council meeting. Their lobbyist considers her to be the subject matter expert. I have invited her to join the task force going forward, and she has graciously accepted to do so, and I thank her for that. I've spent my entire adult life coaching teams in continuous improvement, and I will apply that practice to this ordinance. As we become smarter, come up with amendments to improve this ordinance, I'll be the first in line to support those and sponsor them. This is intended to be a living document. I respectfully ask this body that any amendments being submitted that those amendments be submitted to the task force so that they can come back with recommendations and suggestions to this council, and we can address them at that time for final consideration. Crafting amendment language on the fly, in my opinion, is a recipe for disaster. It denies us the opportunity to tap into the body of expertise available to us. This ordinance is not aimed at the legitimate businesses. It is uniquely designed to provide code enforcement and law enforcement with the necessary tools to effectively go after the human trafficking that is hiding in plain sight in Metro Louisville. Human trafficking is the term we use in polite society to describe this abomination, because it is just too disgusting to call it by its real name. This is modern-day slavery, pure and simple. If it means that the 15-year period of massage facilities getting a free pass must come to an end, so be it. Again, the law requiring a license is not new. We just haven't been enforcing it for 15 years. Tonight, the Department of Health and Wellness is on notice to begin enforcing the current laws, regardless of if this ordinance passes tonight or not. And by the way, the existing ordinance that's on the book and has been for over 50 years is way more restrictive than this proposed ordinance. Several people have claimed that this ordinance punishes the legitimate businesses. It doesn't. It simply brings them into compliance with the law that's been on the books since 1974. In the grand scheme of things, when it comes to weighing a $200 license fee that should have been assessed over the past 15 years and hasn't been, against rescuing women and children from the bondage of modern-day slavery, I know which side I'm going to land on every single time. And make no mistake, every single Metro Council district is affected by this. We've all imagined what we would have done had we been around during some of the most pivotal times in history. This is one of those times. We are literally dealing with modern-day slavery occurring in Louisville, Kentucky in 2025. We can either ignore it, deny it, or do something about it. A yes vote on this ordinance means you're willing to take a stand against this atrocity. A no vote means that you're okay with humans being bought and sold like so much chattel. Don't get distracted by the noise being generated around this issue. The stakes are just too important. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. I, for one, will be an emphatic yes, and I hope that my colleagues will be as well. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be glad to answer any questions or concerns.
Well, the first in my queue is Councilman Chapel, and you have the floor, madam.
Remember when I couldn't find myself earlier in the queue? Found myself. But happy to speak on it. Wasn't planning on going first, but I think that maybe it's natural that I'm going in the queue right now because this was an issue that was called to question in committee, and the conversation on it was ended, and I was actually next in the queue. And I've heard so many times in this body, oh, well, if you had questions, why are you asking it at council? You should have asked it at committee. And I didn't write new notes. I'm just going to go off of the notes that I had from that public safety committee meeting, of which I'm also not a member, but I showed up with my questions. I was prepared, but denied the opportunity to speak on them. So if this is an existing law and it just hasn't been enforced for 15 years, why not just enforce the existing law? I think that there's pretty strenuous licensing requirements for massage therapists, which we have seen and been presented with tonight. It's been mentioned numerous times that there's 30 to 40 known problematic massage facilities in Louisville. It seems like if we have that number, we can have a little bit more targeted approach, or maybe we could just start enacting the law that we have on the books. I've also asked numerous times for a number of how many massage facilities there are in Louisville. I have not been able to receive that answer from anyone, nor have I been able to find the answer online. Also, with the help of AI, I've come up with no answers. I'm questioning if there's been a financial impact statement done for this legislation. It can't be called on tonight, but I wonder if that has been done. I've been told that it has, but only for the ABC portion of this legislation, which would be about $320,000. The thing is, this is a new license, or a license that they will have to start overseeing. And when I tried to add a license, I was told it was going to be about $2 million. And a lot of that was just because we have an overburdened and overworked ABC staff. And so I think that this legislation, we will by all means need to hire more people to manage that database, but also enforce this law. But this law doesn't just include ABC, it also includes codes and regs, public health, and planning in the planning department. And it also includes LMPD, of which would be doing background checks. And interestingly enough, there's $75,000 suggested in the mid-year budget adjustment for the sheriff to do background checks, because the sheriff has found LMPD to be too slow in returning any background checks. I have a lot of issues with the legislation on page 5. Item 12, the names, residential addresses, and signed written statements of at least 3 bona fide permanent residents of the United States that the applicant is of good moral character. I don't know what good moral character. I think that a lot of you would have a struggle to say that I have good moral character. So I don't see why we are asking this of our massage therapists when we don't ask this of liquor store owners, we don't ask this of police, we don't ask this of politicians. On page 10, there's section C, and it's talking about access to locked doors. If you have ever had a massage, you have to get undressed if that is your choice. And I know a lot of people that like to be behind a locked door when they are doing so for their own safety. On page 10, there's also visibility about not having any curtains, closed blinds, tents, or any other material that obstructs, blurs, or darkens the view into the premises. And I find that to be also problematic language. On page 11, it talks about a register of patrons. The massage facility shall maintain a register of all patrons of the massage facility that includes the first and last name of patron, the first and last name of massage therapist, date and time of service, type of service received. And I am one that believes that massage is healthcare. And I think that a lot of the people that are trained in this room and across our city who are licensed to give massages would also agree that it is healthcare. And so given that information, I think that it is a violation of people's privacy to not only require that to be reported to the government, but I also question who is going to be storing the information that's gathered. Is there a time that it's going to be destroyed upon receival? How secure is this? Because if I get a massage, I don't need the whole world to know what my services were. If I dislocated a muscle in my hip and I had my butt or my buttocks massaged, I don't see why that's the business of anyone. And since we have not identified who is going to be securely holding this information, I think that's really problematic. Also on page 11, section 115.183, it says that there needs to be cameras. Each massage facility is allowed up to 2 fixed security cameras, provided that one security camera must face the main entry, lobby, or reception desk, and the second camera must face any alternative entrance or exit. I find this to be sloppy language, because I don't understand if those 2 are required. What if I have 1? What if I have 3? It doesn't really explain what the requirements are, just that 2 be pointed at these very specific areas. I'm voting against this, and just because I'm voting against this, it doesn't mean that I'm in support of sex trafficking. It's quite opposite. I don't think that this solves the problem, and I do think it penalizes the good players. And I wish that we would try to not reinvent the wheel on this, and we would go ahead and enforce the laws that we already have on the books and look at creative ways. And last that I checked, this 40-person task force has never presented its findings to this body. And so without having the information on what they have been investigating and what they have found, I can't say that I would support legislation that these anonymous people have created. So that is my piece. That's why I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Councilman Owen, you're next to my queue. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, President Ackerson. I feel like I have to point things out that are strange for me to be the one pointing them out. But when we were talking about plastic bags, it was very clearly said that it's not our job to regulate business. That is exactly what we do. That's what we do when we passed a resolution recently that I think was excellent law that regulated check cashing in a way that would benefited our communities. We just suggested that we have the Planning Commission look into liquor licenses and how those are passed, and I think that's exactly what we should be doing because, you know, that's the way we protect our community. So when it benefits, you know, your storyline and say we shouldn't regulate business, okay, that's one thing, but I just think I want to point that out because that's exactly what we do, and we do it to benefit our constituents. So I think a couple of things for me. I agree that we're taking what I feel like is a government sledgehammer to a problem that could probably use a scalpel. And I think the testimony previously of the expert who asked us to hold off for a few minutes, I think was very compelling. I kind of thought that previous to coming into this meeting anyway, but I thought the testimony was particularly compelling. And I do think as a body, especially on Budget Committee, we try to get ourselves to 18, 20 votes. And I think that's a really good practice. And I think this particular legislation, even though I think it's right now a little heavy-handed, I think we could get to legislation that was better legislation than what's in front of us. And we could get to 18 or 20 votes, and that's what I would like to try to do here. So I'd like to make a motion to send it back to committee so we can have that conversation and try to improve the legislation to make it a little bit more of a scalpel instead of a hammer. And listen, I know there's urgency here, but we have spent, you know, 13 months on this and another couple of weeks to try to incorporate some of the things that the testimony that was said here tonight and to incorporate some of that into the legislation rather than just asking, you know, the good players in the business to trust us that we'll be able to figure it out going forward. Listen, I don't think that, I'm not saying they shouldn't trust us, but I just think that's a tall ask when we're affecting their business in the way that we are. So again, I would like to make a motion to send it back to committee.
Second. We've got a motion to send it back to committee before us. I believe that is a non-debatable issue. And so as such, let's do a roll call on this one. Madam Clerk, open the roll.
Councilmember, Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber.
Yes, however you say it.
Thank you. And Councilmember Winkler.
Yes.
Is that everyone? I think it is. Mr. President, you have 13 yes votes and 13 no votes. It fails.
The motion fails. The next person in my queue is Councilman Rui. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you very much. I'd like to speak to the urgency of this. You've been working on this legislation for a year. You've had a task force, and now you are asking us to pass this with no changes to it. And I don't understand what the urgency is at this point when you have a year and you wait 2 weeks. You call your task force together, and we present our concerns, and you give your task force a chance to address them. I don't understand what the urgency is that we have to pass this now. As has been noted by many constituents, there are significant problems with this. One of the ones is the in-home studios, which, as this legislation is currently written, will not be allowed. And that's going to put a lot of personal massage therapist studios out of business. In addition, the areas that you're allowed to massage, once again, okay, so I recently had to have a muscle spasm in my hip, was finally diagnosed after 3 months, and I was told just go get a massage. As it stands right now, I would have to get a permission slip from my doctor to go see my massage therapist to go have her work on a muscle spasm in my butt. I don't know why I need to go through that extra step when this is a trusted person that I've worked with for years. It seems like a lot of this is coming from a point of mistrust. As was noted, you have to have character witnesses from 3 different people. We don't ask for character witnesses from people who operate liquor stores, which can be very detrimental to a neighborhood. We don't ask for character witnesses for somebody opening up a vape shop or anything else for that matter. And it's insulting to people who are trying to operate a legitimate business. And as I started, this is something you've been working on for over a year. I do not see the urgency, and I ask that we hold this and come back to it after you've had a chance to present our concerns to your task force. So I'm going to ask once again that I would like to have this tabled and we meet with your task force.
Is there a second, or is that a motion, madam?
That was a motion.
That was a motion. Is there a second to table?
Second.
Second.
I think the first vote was to send it back to committee.
Back to committee, so this is a separate vote.
This is a
Thank you.
separate vote, and thus bona fide. All right, I don't believe that tabling is debatable. And as such, what's that? So this is not a debatable. Let's open the roll call so we can be precise.
Councilmember Parrish Wright.
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber.
Yes.
Councilmember Winkler.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 13 yes votes and 13 no votes.
The motion fails. The next in my queue is Councilman Piagentini.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, first of all, I know I didn't say that we should never regulate business. So I'm not sure who did. Maybe somebody did. It wasn't me. Because we do. You're absolutely right. My colleague is right. We do regulate business. I was simply saying that in that particular case, it would make life more expensive for poor people, and there was no plan. Here, there is a year-long developed plan with just about every stakeholder that you can muster to develop that plan. There's no such thing, at least I've never seen it, and somebody point to it when you do, of perfect legislation. That will never happen, okay? This is very good legislation. To those that want to implement the current regulations, feel free. Every operator that came up here and that is concerned with this will be shut down almost overnight. The current regulation, the current law is far more egregious, 0 exemptions. It will be devastating to the industry if it were implemented today. And it should have been implemented 15 years ago. So there would be a massive fallout if we didn't move on this and this group started moving on regulating these businesses according to current law. I'm honestly, to some degree, a little confused by the vocal and aggressive manner in which some want to stop or slow this down. And yet, we have a colleague who has dedicated an incredible amount of time and effort, has not been very secretive about it. We've had press conferences on this, so it's not as though we were hiding the ball. Anybody could have approached him about it. I know we've talked at our caucus about this for a very long time. And now wants to say, well, let's put on the brakes. Let's slow down. Where were all these folks who purport to be mad and upset, including experts in the industry who are upset about human trafficking having taken over their industry, sullied their industry. But they didn't come with the solution. Councilman Hudson and this group of people that have been put together have come up with a solution. I couldn't be more I don't even know exactly what to say on how to express my compliments for Councilman Hudson, and not only the work he did. I've done complex legislation before where you have multiple stakeholders. It's very hard to keep that coalition working and to get to a solution and to get to something that you can put forward, knowing it will never be perfect, knowing it will never satisfy everybody, but knowing it is a massive step in the right direction to solve this absolute scourge on our society. This is a part of the Safer Louisville plan that I know my caucus has pushed for. I couldn't possibly be more proud of his efforts. And quite frankly, I would be hard-pressed to remember any piece of legislation that we voted on that even holds a candle to how important this is and this effort is in correcting this horrible situation in our community. Personally, I'm not going to wait another day. It looks like all efforts to sideline this are done procedurally, so we're going to vote on something tonight, and I'm not going to wait another day to vote on this and vote yes. Let's vote on this, start to put an end to this disgusting crime. This will not be the last conversation. It will not be the last amendment. So keep working with the group that's been put together. Let's keep the input coming from the community. But this is a massive step in the right direction, a massive step toward justice and good. And I'm not going to wait another day for it. I encourage everybody to vote on this. I cannot remember something that's this important. I can't. And somebody can tell me what was. But stopping human trafficking, young women particularly, in many cases children, who are stolen from all across this world and shuttled into our community and then used for sexual slavery, it's completely unthinkable. I'm going to be a yes vote. I hope as many people as possible will be a yes vote while encouraging for improvements down the road. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Winkler, you're next in my queue, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think, as we think about the discussion on this issue, I think we'd be hard-pressed to say there aren't 26 people here that are absolutely committed to voting against human trafficking. So I don't think there's a single person here that is pro-human trafficking. And I think that the cause here is laudable and one that everybody supports. However, I think there is a desire by people to make sure that we aren't unnecessarily impacting legitimate operators. And I think we've heard from the industry over the course of last week, and I understand Councilman Piagentini's point that this task force has been working for 13 months. I, however, am not surprised that it's only now catching people's attention because it's been in the media this week, and so that is not atypical. It is atypical, however, for us to say we're going to pass legislation that we know has significant flaws, and then we'll just work on those later. I can't think of any time where we've done that, intentionally passed legislation where we know that there are issues. So I understand that the attempt to table and to send to committee has failed, and so I know Councilman Hudson asked that we don't make amendments on the floor. Unfortunately, that's the only choice that we have remaining. So I'd like to go through a couple of amendments that I would like to make. And the first that I would just preface is I think that what we have here is an amalgam of two pieces of regulation. One deals with the facility, and the other deals with the actual massages, which I think are already regulated under KRS statute. And so any regulation on top of what KRS already regulates, to me, strikes me as wrong and unnecessary. I think I did go to committee. I did get a chance to speak at committee. I did offer an amendment at committee, and somebody reached out to me and that amendment was introduced by Councilman Piagentini on my behalf and was adopted, and that had to deal with basically massaging of the breasts and buttocks if you have a prescription. The next day, a massage therapist reached out to me and said, "My gosh, this is crazy. Like, have you ever gotten a massage? Like, buttocks is a major muscle group. There's nothing sexual about massaging the buttocks." And so the first amendment that I would make is from the definitions, where it is the definition of genitals. I would strike the words buttocks and breasts and make that in the form of a motion.
We've got a motion made and a second. Is there any discussion on the amendment to strike the words buttocks and breast from the definition section? Any discussion on that besides what's in my queue? Because I got, with these amendments, I'm going to keep the general queue here. When it comes to the amendments, I'm going to look around the room. It'll be a raised hand, or if you're on the virtual, just click in and yell at me, okay? Any discussion on this proposed amendment to remove buttocks and breast? Seeing none. Councilman Hudson.
So I appreciate the intent here, but you're making my argument. The amendment that was offered in committee on the fly, what? Oh, the amendment that was submitted in committee on the fly didn't last a day before it was pointed out as being a disaster by the industry. When we make amendments on a complex piece of legislation like this, that every single word in it was gone over by a large group of people that know about the subject matter and pulled in from best practices from other states and other cities, we owe it to go through that same process and allow the county attorney to take a look at it, allow the task force to take a look at it and come back. And we get the final vote, but at least allow some input from people that know, because we don't. Thank you, Mr. President.
In just a second, I'm going to be calling Councilman Winkler, but I just want to point this out. Procedurally, this ship has left port. Procedurally, if there was going to be discussion, it had to go back to committee or be tabled. Those both got voted down. And so at this point, we will be proceeding with the discussion, as Councilman Winkler has pointed out, with discussions on amendments, whether we like it or not. Councilman Winkler, you've got the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And Councilman Hudson, I would say you've made the point exactly of why this should be held and why the committee should have had the discussion. I guess, if I may, I would ask a question, which is, prior to the amendment for the prescription, which, as you just said, it was a problematic amendment, according to the task force. If somebody pulls their glute and needs a massage on their glute, am I correct that they would not have received, that service was outlawed under it was not possible to get treatment on your glutes?
Can I respond, Mr. President? Thank you, sir. Yes, you're incorrect. Unless the intent of that massage, of that part of the body, was for sexual gratification, which the way you have framed it is not. So it's allowable.
Yeah. May I respond?
You may, sir.
Yeah, respectfully, Councilman Hudson, that's not what the ordinance says, though, because and I need to find the section, in the section that we amended, it explicitly said, regardless of intent, that no contact with the sexual areas was permitted, period, independent of intent. So you had you had the intent clause earlier, but then you had a superseding clause later on that completely outlawed. And that, to me, is the problem. Again, I think what we're doing here, I don't think anybody disagrees. Right? I've said that. I mean, I don't think anybody disagrees. I do worry about impacting legitimate operators who have a state-regulated license that tells them how to operate, and that we are layering on top of that. That's my primary concern, and that's why I will have a hard time being a yes vote without these amendments. And again, I've got the amendment before us. I think that there is a disconnect in the ordinance how it's written, and so I would ask for the support on my amendment.
You want to respond?
So, Councilman Winkler, you and I are just going to agree to disagree on this one, I think. But what I would like to do is ask the county attorney to weigh in on that amendment. The one that was offered in committee, the one we're talking about.
Sure, Natalie Johnson with the Jefferson County Attorney's Office. So the ordinance as written right now in front of council does prohibit contact with the sexual or genital areas as defined by the ordinance unless under the direct orders of a licensed medical professional.
For clarity, regardless of intent, correct?
That is correct.
Anyone else on this amendment? I'm seeing no hands in the air. This is an amendment that would normally require a voice vote. However, based upon the nature of this particular piece, I'm going to say, or it's going to be a roll call. Madam Clerk, open the roll for a vote on this amendment to remove buttocks and breasts from the definition section.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Winkler,
Yes.
Rena Weber's gone. Councilmember Bast? No, I have you as a no. I've got everyone else. Mr. President, you have 13 yes votes and 12 no votes.
The amendment passes. All right. So now we have the amended version where we've removed those two terms from the definition pursuant to Councilman Winkler's request. Again, my problem is my cue is based upon the overall discussion of the ordinance. Are we going to go back to the overall discussion or more amendments? We're going back to the overall? Okay, Councilman Leninger, you're next to my cue and you have the floor, sir.
Respectfully, Mr. President, I believe that Councilman Winkler said he had a series of amendments he wanted to offer and hasn't yielded the floor.
Well, he doesn't have the floor.
Okay.
Councilman Winkler, you got another amendment that you want to put forward?
I do, but I will yield the floor for now, and I'll come back to them, please.
Councilman Winkler yields. You have the floor, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Just trying to watch out for my other members. So I also have problems with this legislation as written. You know, like Councilman Winkler, I think that there is no one in this body that's in favor of human trafficking, which is abhorrent, and we should be looking to do everything that we can to combat it in our communities. I think we heard the same from the members of the licensed community of massage therapists. This is something they are also interested in. It is for their protection. In addition to the people who are harmed directly by human trafficking, they don't want human trafficking. They don't want prostitution. They don't want these things in their practices. They don't want their practice associated with these ideas. They are also opposed to these things. But we have legislation before us which is not ready. And we had members who were cut off at the committee level when they had questions, when they wanted to offer amendments. We're told that's not appropriate. We're told we can't have it we can't send it back. So yes, we do have to do some legislating on the fly, and I think that's unfortunate because I think it would have been better to do it with the people that you've got in your task force because I think you've done a lot of work on that, and I think that you are doing something important for our community. I want us to get to a place that we can all support it. I would like to offer an amendment today to have a blanket exemption from sole proprietors due to the fact that this legislation as written poses a great deal of undue hardship to sole proprietors. It has a lot of problems in terms of their ability to continue to practice. They would immediately be in violation of the law with no way to redress. I think that we need to exempt sole proprietors and come back and look at how we want to specifically target sole proprietors and make sure that we are taking care of members of our community. I will point out that if the concern of this legislation is human trafficking, then sole proprietors are not a problem. Sole proprietors, people who are in practice for themselves, are not trafficking themselves. So I am moving that we exempt sole proprietors.
We have a proper amendment and second before us. Again, and the first hand I see up is Councilman Hudson. You have the floor, sir. Anyone else after he speaks? Let me see some hands, and I'm not just talking little fingers. I need to see a hand in the air, okay? Thank you.
I'll put my hand up next time.
That's right, you were fingering, next time hand.
So I would direct your attention to section 115.185 on page 13 that specifically exempts sole proprietors. The last sentence says, "This provision does not preclude the location of a massage facility in separate quarters of a building that houses a hotel or separate business, club, or residence, if permitted by the Land Development Code." So if somebody if a sole proprietor has a massage business from a room dedicated in their house, they are already exempt from this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Anyone else, any discussion on this proposed amendment? I'm not seeing any hands. Here we go.
Could we, the county attorney weigh in on that as well, just to make sure that we're not getting crosswise?
Natalie Johnson with the Jefferson County Attorney's Office again. So the ordinance as written excludes licensed massage therapists who are not running a massage facility. So that's a given, right? That's a full exclusion there. And then there's aspects of the ordinance where sole proprietors who are running a massage facility are exempt from certain aspects. So for the access provision, they don't have to keep their door unlocked if they're a sole proprietor and they don't have any employees or independent contractors. There are also the prohibition against residents. That does not apply to them as well, so long as they are zoned properly for home occupation. And I spoke with zoning about that. Massage is considered a home occupation under the zoning code. So as long as they're in compliance with the zoning code, they can live in their home. There's no issue there. Are they fully exempt from the ordinance? No, if they are running a massage facility.
Any further questions on this proposed amendment? I'm not seeing any hands. This amendment would require a voice vote. However, in the interest of where we're at, we're going to do a roll call. Madam Clerk, open the roll.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Winkler,
Yes.
Councilmember Bast. I'll get someone to help you, but I have you for no. Mr. President, you have 12 yes votes and 13 no votes. Yeah, thank you.
What was that?
You have 12 yes votes and 13 no votes.
The proposed amendment fails. All right, the question now is, does someone else want to propose amendment, or do you want me to go back to the queue? I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm going back to the queue. Councilman Batshon, you're next to my queue, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to go back to a remark that another colleague made earlier. And in my earlier remarks, I said we shouldn't regulate businesses. But to be clear, and agree with you, I led responsible regulations and passed resolutions addressing over-concentration of smoke shops, liquor stores, check cashing business in vulnerable neighborhoods. What I meant to say is this: we shouldn't be using non-binding resolutions as a backdoor to regulate business behavior. If we want to change policy, let's do it with real legislation, with transparency, accountability, enforcement standards. Symbolic pressure without legal weight that sends mixed messages and undermines the seriousness of the work. Councilman Hudson has put tireless effort towards this legislation and is committed to doing the right thing for this community. I sincerely support this legislation, and I hope we can move past this and get this moved today. Thank you.
Councilwoman Raymond, you are next in the queue, and you have the floor, madam.
Thank you. Mr. President, how do I ask questions of the sponsor? Kevin, all I can think is, Speaker, will the sponsor yield to a question?
Technically, you're supposed to ask them to me, and then he hears them. That's sort of hocus pocus. Just ask him the floor.
Okay. Okay. Sponsor. If I'm understanding it correctly, I didn't know the task force was operating. And I'm looking for these press conferences that have happened. All I see is news articles from 2 weeks ago announcing a new task force. That's all I can find. So I'm assuming that's all the public can find too. I didn't know the task force was operating. Am I correct that it includes LMPD, ABC, codes and regulations, the health department, and others?
Yes,
Where can I find a public list of all the members of the task force?
I can provide that to you.
There's not a public list.
don't know that there is a public list. I mean, you could do an open records request and get it, but I'll freely give it to you.
Thank you. Generally, a task force like this would present data, as Councilwoman Chapel said, and offer a recommendation, which then the council would work into an ordinance. Why didn't they follow that process?
Some of the nature of the business doesn't lend itself to public disclosure because of the investigations that are ongoing. To answer some of the questions that have been asked is how many massage facilities are out there, both legitimate and illegitimate. And the current count is 347. I would suggest that this ordinance is the report out of the committee or the task force.
I wasn't at the committee where you presented this. Who else testified about this ordinance in that committee besides yourself?
We had the mayor's office here. We had the heads of all of the departments, codes and regs, Department of Health. We had representatives from law enforcement. I'm trying to remember. There was, if I can infer where you're going with this, there was no one that was excluded from testifying.
Let me ask this. How many more questions do you have? Because I don't want to turn this
Many.
into the...
I have
Okay.
many
Okay,
questions.
well, but the point is this, is I'm not going to turn this into a, half hour of your inquisition.
How about a legislative hearing?
How about you get back in the queue? Okay? Ask one more question, and you can get back in the queue.
On task forces that I've been on, at the conclusion, when recommendations are determined, even internally, there's some document that's produced that members of the task force sign on to. Did that process happen in this case?
Again, I would submit to you that that document is this ordinance.
Councilwoman McCraney, you're next in the queue. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Mr. President. I decline.
Councilwoman Chapel, you're next to my queue. You have the floor, madam.
Sure, I'll offer two amendments. First one, I would like to strike section 115.172, item 12.
Can you tell us what page that's on?
Yes, that should be on page 5. The names, residential addresses, and signed written statements of at least 3 bona fide permanent residents of the United States, that the applicant is of good moral character. The statement must be first furnished from residents of Louisville, Kentucky, then Jefferson County, Kentucky, then the state of Kentucky, and lastly, from the rest of the United States. These references must be persons other than relatives and business associates. Yep, that whole thing.
Got a second? We've got a properly moved motion and a second before us. All right, we're going back to the raising of the hands. Is there any discussion on this amendment? I'm not seeing any hands in the air. Councilman Winkler, is that a hand?
Well, I wasn't gonna. I guess I do have a question because, and again, not to direct this to Councilman Hudson, but maybe he can answer. Was this in the previous regulation already? Just out of curiosity, or is this a new addition? In the previous licensing requirement that we weren't enforcing?
I'm not as familiar with the current ordinance, but I would ask the county attorney if she could weigh in on that.
Sure, Natalie Johnson with the County Attorney's Office. It was not in the original ordinance or the ordinance that's on the books right now.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on this amendment? I see no hands in the air. Therefore, again, we're going to go with a roll call for this amendment. Madam Clerk, open the roll.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber,
Yes.
Councilmember Winkler.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 14 yes votes and 12 no votes.
The amendment passes. So item 12 on page 5 is stricken. All right.
But I believe
You
we're
said
each,
you had one more amendment, right?
I've got 3, and I thought
Okay,
by
go ahead.
some unwritten rule, it's like 3, and then you got to get
Go ahead.
back in the queue.
Go ahead.
Okay. Unless that is a real rule, I don't know. Page 11, video surveillance. I would like to make that language more clear. So, wait. Yes, page 11. We're going to be on page 11 for both my things. Video surveillance. I think that this should be changed from each massage facility is allowed up to 2 fixed security cameras, provided that one security camera must face the main entry area, lobby, or reception desk, and the second camera must face any alternative entrance or exit. Since it is unclear on how many cameras need to be required, I would like to change the language to each massage facility is required to have video surveillance at all exterior entrances/exits.
Can you repeat it, please, for those of us who are trying to read along?
What's in there, or what I'm proposing?
What you're proposing?
Video, each massage facility is required to have video surveillance at all exterior entrances/exits. Again, it says allowed up to 2. What if you only have 1 entrance or exit? I don't know, would that? You should have 3. What if you have 3? Yeah, right, what if you have 3? Is that against the law to have 3? Because it says you're allowed up to 2. So I think it just needs to be clarified.
Okay, so your clarification, though, is requiring a
I
camera-
didn't put a number to it, I just said required at all entrances, exits.
Okay.
Exterior entrances, exits.
Okay, so the proposed amendment just would be to take it from saying they're allowed to have 2 fixed cameras and saying 1 at the entrance and 1 in the sort of the lobby area. You're saying your amendment is that they have video surveillance cameras at all entrances and exits.
Yes.
And it's okay. Any questions or debate on that proposed amendment? Councilman Hudson, I see the hand up this time. Oh, I thought I heard a second. Can you second that? First one. Okay, do we have a second on that?
Second.
There's a second. Councilman Hudson, we now have the amendment, proposed amendment before us.
Thank you, Mr. President. On its surface, I don't have a lot of heartburn with this amendment, but I would just like to add some color and maybe ask the councilwoman if she would entertain an adjustment to say no cameras inside the massage facility. For this reason, here's the reason it says up to 2 fixed security cameras. In the practice of the, again, illegitimate businesses, guy comes in, is shown to a room, girl is brought to the room, they negotiate services, guy pays for the services, has to come outside, and there's a camera in the hallway. She has to hold the money up and show it to the camera, and then go and put it into a slot, and then go back into the room. That's what the intent of this paragraph was to get rid of that practice. So if the councilwoman would entertain with the exclusion of interior cameras.
Sure, I don't even like when people have those in their residential homes.
Okay, so that's but who seconded? I think, Josie, did you second it? JP, you seconded. Are you going to second this clarification here?
I think that's, but I'm not getting into it in another, but we should have a motion, but if, I don't have a problem.
Can I then withdraw my initial one and just rephrase it with
Sure.
Councilman Hudson's? Okay. All right. video surveillance. Each massage facility is required to have cameras at all exterior exits, entrances and exits, and are prohibited from having interior cameras.
Is there a second? We have the amendment before us. Is there any further discussion on this proposed amendment? Councilwoman McCraney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you're saying interior, that could mean inside the building, the facility. So could we more clarify?
With the exception of the lobby?
I thought the intent was not to have a camera in the room where they're getting the services. No?
I believe,
Then
I believe the intent was to not have a camera in the interior of the facility.
Nowhere inside the business. Is that what you're?
May I? What? May I speak on this?
You have the floor, ma'am.
Please.
It's kind of difficult because I hear Councilman Hudson's concern about this money in the hallway trick. Apologies, I've never been inside these facilities, so I don't know how they operate, but that therefore would be an interior camera that would pick up on that nefarious activity, and I believe that's what they want to prohibit.
Just restate your amendment, and maybe I can hear it differently.
Sure. Each massage facility is required to have a fixed camera at all exterior entrances and exits, and all interior cameras are not allowed.
So this is on the clerk.
Interior cameras are prohibited.
There we-
Yeah.
In that case, Madam Clerk, please read what you have in the record.
Each massage facility is required to have video surveillance at all exterior exits and are prohibited from having interior cameras.
You're welcome. Any other questions or debate on this proposed amendment? I'm not seeing any hands in the air. This is an amendment. Thank you, sir, but that one doesn't count. The end result is this. Let's have a roll call vote on this amendment.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Rena Weber,
Yes.
Councilmember Winkler,
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 22 yes votes, 3 no votes, and 1 present vote.
That amendment passes. Councilwoman Chapel, I believe, you got another amendment.
Yes, and last one. I would like to strike section 115.181, Register of Patrons, in its entirety.
Can you tell us what page, please?
Sorry, page 11. So the massage facility shall maintain a register of all patrons of the massage facility that includes the following information: first and last name of patron, first and last name of massage therapist, date and time of service, type of service received. Massage facilities are required to verify the first and last name of the patron using a government ID, and the register of patrons may be inspected by an authorized code officer pursuant to administrative, judicial, or judicial warrant.
Is there a second? And first in my queue to discuss this is Councilman Piagentini.
Thank you. Look, I've obviously been against the amendments here. I'm in favor of my colleague's bill, but this one I have to speak on. this might as well be called the, just go back to the way it is and let illegal operations reign amendment. If you are truly a therapeutic business, if you are doing therapy, if this is, let's call it medical adjacent at best, okay? At the lowest possible level, which anybody that's legitimately in the industry would say they are. If you are not recording any information whatsoever about the people that you're serving, then I'm sorry, you are simply not operating anything that is a legitimate business or is therapeutic in any possible way. All of the therapy offices that you all go to record this information. The only businesses that don't, related to healthcare, are businesses that are operating illegally. So, the other ones, look, probably, cameras here, 2 cameras pointing at the door, okay, some amendments, all right. This one would be to say full stop that therapy facilities are not legitimate therapy facilities, and they just want to run in anonymity and not be taken seriously as providing a healthcare service. Every single person and business that operates a healthcare service records this information. Thank you.
Councilman Winkler, I see your hand up, and it looks like next will be Councilman Reno Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. And in this case, I agree with Councilman Piagentini. I don't see anything wrong, to his point, about any sort of medical or medical adjacent provider logging. I could potentially support the removal of for the type of service, because that has the difference between a medical office. I'm pretty sure that is not available for inspection by a government inspector, what I went in to see my doctor for. And so I could support the removal of for. I don't agree with the removal of the entirety of the section. Thank you, Mr. President.
Next in my queue is Councilman Reno Weber.
Also agree with the idea that having a log of some sort, it would be good practice if this is a medical establishment. Whereas sort of find myself oddly struggling is this a thing we do for medical offices at the city level in any other context? I think part of my problem with a lot of this is not the intent. Clearly, I'm incredibly supportive of the intent. It is that in doing it in this fashion, we are setting very bizarre precedents, I think. This moral character stuff, the having the inspection of patient names by who? We don't do that for my dentist. We don't do moral character. I'll tell you where we have done that, and that's in some places that do not have good track records with rule of law, which again, I want to support Councilman Hudson's efforts here. And I've talked to him several times, reached out, but this feels, doing this in this haphazard way, feels bad. So if we have to do it this way, fine, but we're not doing that for legitimate medical establishments. So why are we doing this here?
Nope. Councilwoman Rui, you're next on my floor queue.
Thank you very much. So regarding the register of patrons, everything in section A is pretty much already filled out by a licensed massage therapist, as they keep records on the treatment protocol that they used on any of their clients. As far as requiring a government-issued ID, that seems overkill to me. And having it inspected by an authorized code officer pursuant to a warrant is already state law. So I don't see why that needs to be included in here. So I would like to strike out B and C, but I have no problem with section A.
Okay, well, at this point, we have the motion that's before us is a complete striking of section 115.181. So that's what you'll have to vote for, a complete strike or not a complete strike. Councilman Piagentini, you're next to my queue.
Thank you. There's all kinds of things being said incorrectly. First of all, just in case you all don't know, everything you do at your doctor's office, including the procedure codes, are transmitted to the federal government, okay? Nothing is private as far as what you do at your doctor's office. They de-identify it when it gets sent to the government, but they have the ability to know precisely what happened in your doctor's office, essentially at any time they want. They de-identify that information and they put it up there, but they're required to do it. The reason that we're requiring it in massage therapy here at a local level is because this is not seen as medical treatment by federal government agencies, CMS, the FDA, or any of these major agencies that regulate this, so they leave it to the states and local government to do that, and they don't require the same reporting of things. This idea that your dentist doesn't require a morality statement, of course they do when they get licensed, when they take their board tests and all these things. There's all kinds of, there's just a disgusting level of stuff that those folks have to do in order to get their license and operate their facilities. And they have to get regulated at federal, state, and in many times local jurisdictions as well. The reason we're doing this here is because unlike a hospital facility, for example, which has hundreds, if not thousands of pages of state and federal regulations, these facilities have almost none, no regulations at the federal and state level. So we are requiring some in order to, so there's, this is again, the problem that Councilman Hudson was getting at early on. There's things being said here that simply are not true. And now we're going so far as to say, well, you know, we should collect any information. That information is not saying, by the way, that they've got to transmit that information to Louisville Metro Council so we can see who's being serviced here, okay? It is simply required that they collect it so that proper law enforcement personnel under proper constitutionally protected investigations can ensure that this is a legitimate business and can see patterns of activity. It's the only reason they're doing it. And what they're collecting is nothing compared to what your doctors are collecting every time you walk in and out of that office. And that information is required to be transmitted to the state and federal government. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Chapel, you're next in my floor queue.
Thank you. It was provided to us earlier, the application for licensure as a massage therapist. So this idea that you're stating that you're a good moral character when you take the oath of your licensure, I think that applies. And there's a lot of questions in here, they're yes or no, but that really are pretty in-depth. It's not like, hey, do you like giving hand jobs, yes or no? Hey, do you plan on doing something, you know, hiring young women to do all of your work, yes or no? I mean, there's hundreds of hours of work and certification and exams and all sorts of background that you have to do in order to become a legit licensed massage therapist. And I think that it's an insult to those who practice massage therapy to say that, you know, they have to go above and beyond what we already have in place to prove that they're good moral people. So I'm going to stand by wanting to strike all of this, but whether or not, if it doesn't pass, I would at least want to come back and entertain the idea of striking item 4, type of service received. And then I think item C needs to be a little bit more fleshed out, and maybe even an item D offered here. And that's, again, all of this information is collected, say, by an administrative or judicial warrant, and an authorized code officer, which I'm assuming is from the Department of Codes and Regulations. I think that there needs to be language in here and saying, how is that information obtained, how is it stored, and how long is it stored? I think that those things are very, very important to identify in this legislation. So again, standing by striking this whole section, but if not, I'll try to pop back in the queue and offer that as an amendment if nobody else does.
Councilman Hudson, you're next on my floor queue.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So a little background on why this section exists. In the course of putting together best practices, we looked at what other states are doing and what is effective. This particular section came from the state of Florida, which has a huge problem that we're facing and has been very effective at resolving it. And it is state law in Florida, just like this. To Councilwoman Chappell's point about all of the enumerated things already are required for a licensed massage therapist. Again, the state regulates and licenses the people. This ordinance regulates and licenses the facility. It's two completely different things. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else desiring to speak on this proposed floor amendment? I'm not seeing any hands in the air. Therefore, we're going up. Councilwoman McCraney.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier, my colleague Rui suggested her amendment. She could, in fact, amend the amendment without us going through this vote and then going back to her.
If she made a motion to do that, I believe she could.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this particular amendment?
Okay, I would like to amend the amendment that has been proposed to strike sections B and C from section 115.18, requiring the use of a government-issued form of identification and the register of patrons being inspected by an authorized code officer, since this is already state law.
Is there a second on that amendment to the amendment?
I'm sorry, sir. I have a question real quick.
No. Well, yes. Right now, the initial amendment was before us was to strike all of section 115.181. And the proposed amendment to that says leave section A in, but strike B and C. Is there a second for Councilwoman Rui's proposed amendment to the amendment? There was a second over here. All right. We now have the proposed amendment to the amendment before us. Is there any discussion on such? I'm looking around for hands. I see no hands. Madam Clerk, let's do a roll call on this amendment, which would just change the amendment so it would strike only B and C of section 115.181.
Correct.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber,
Yes.
and Councilmember Winkler.
No.
That's everyone. Mr. President, you have 11 yes votes and 15 no votes on the amendment to the amendment.
Councilman Rui, your amendment to the amendment fails. Now we have the proposed amendment before us, which is to strike the entirety of section 115.181. Any discussion on that, further discussion on that? I see no hands. Let's do a roll call vote on that proposed amendment.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber,
Yes.
and Councilmember Winkler.
No.
Councilman Benson, we are voting on the proposed amendment to strike the entirety of section 115.181.
Mr. President, you have 7 yes votes, 18 no votes, and 1 present vote.
Councilman Chapel, that amendment fails. Do you have any other amendments at the moment, or can we tender the floor to someone else? Okay. Councilman Piagentini, you're next in my general queue, not the floor queue, but the general queue.
Yeah, just wanted to let a colleague of mine know, and all my colleagues know, I try to monitor all of the press conferences that come out of the Majority Caucus. The Minority Caucus 2 months ago had a press conference. You can Google it. It's on YouTube. There's actually multiple news channels that covered it. There is a document that we published on the public website called the Minority Caucus's Safer Louisville Plan. And in that, it talks about one of the topics it talks about is tackling human trafficking. So I do want to make it clear that we are trying to be as transparent and public as possible. We have our documents related to our agenda out there. Again, not saying that's the full commission, by the way. That's not what I'm saying.
Councilman Piagentini, I think you're venturing a little off topic.
I'm just responding to a colleague, but I'm glad to be reined in. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Syme, you're next in my general queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for the sponsor, if I may. You said there's 347 massage parlors, massage therapies?
Across
therapists?
all of Metro Louisville.
Okay, and are they all licensed, since this 15-year of non-licensed, are they not licensed, or what?
Yeah, so over that 15-year period, the Metro government changed computer systems that we know of at least 3 times. With each iteration of the change of different software, somewhere along the way, we lost the ability to even issue a license. So if someone wanted to open a massage facility and said, hey, I did my research, I looked at the law, I'm required to have a license, can you give me one? We would not have been able to issue a license. So my answer is no, none of them have a license.
None of them are in compliance with today's law.
That's right.
Thank you.
Next to my queue is Councilwoman Raymond.
Thank you. I'd like to ask some questions of the sponsor, please.
You okay with that? Yep, perfect. I'd say just direct them directly to him.
I'd like to know how many massage therapists are on the task force.
I'll have to go back and look at the list, but I know that one of the board members of the State Board of Licensure is on the task force. A local owner, so there's 2. To get an exact number, I'll have to go back and look.
And how many trafficking survivors are on the task force?
There's a representative from an organization called Scarlet Hope. Actually, two representatives from an organization called Scarlet Hope that kind of represent that population. And occasionally, I think they would bring somebody, but not a whole lot of people want to come forward, as you can imagine.
In a news article from 2 weeks ago, they could have gotten it wrong, but said it was announcing the formation of a task force, right? In the headline was this quote from LMPD, it's a very complex issue. It's a very complex issue. Knowing that, and you've said as much, I appreciate that you've been meeting with folks, but meeting with folks is only meaningful if you're willing to evolve. Am I correct that you were unwilling to change anything in this ordinance?
I think I have proven tonight that I am willing. I voted yes on Councilman Chappell's amendment.
Prior to tonight, you were unwilling to?
That's not true.
Prior to tonight, you did not change anything?
I did not change anything, but my response to that was my preferred method would be to take those changes to the task force, allow them to come back. I believe I said in my own opening statement, I would be the first in line to sponsor such an amendment.
This brings me to something that's really bothered me tonight, which is where you said you want this legislation to be a living document. We're all legislators, right? There's hundreds of years of experience legislating in this room. We don't have a living document with any piece of legislation. We make changes sometimes, but more often, we all know that we pass a piece of legislation and we go, took care of that.
We would agree to disagree on that. I think every piece of legislation
What,
is
it
a
wasn't,
living
it
document.
wasn't a question.
Oh, sorry. Apologize.
That is what happens. People slap each other on the back, and people say, we took care of that. And that's what I foresee happening here. Also, I think tonight we've seen some philosophical things that revealed really black and white thinking. If you're for this piece of legislation, you're going to heaven. If you're against it, you're an absolute monster, right? That doesn't serve anyone. To present issues that way and to present votes that way.
Mr. President, is there
when
a
it, again,
question anywhere?
is a very complex issue. I may speak on the ordinance, may I not?
She's speaking, but you're speaking the ordinance, but there might be a little bit venturing off. I don't think there was any discussion of going to heaven or hell tonight. So,
If you're for this, you are against human trafficking, and if you don't vote for this, you're okay with it continuing. That's pretty close to verbatim.
I would say that that was what was said, not heaven and hell.
I'd like to ask the sponsor a couple of questions that were raised by a professional in my district. And this could be a proposed change. She said she thinks what would really help is if massage therapists had to display their license with their photograph. This is already produced at the state level, right? Like a cosmetology license. Do you think that would help?
I do.
And she also raised the question of keeping her patient log, right? She's a professional, she's running a business, but she's a sole proprietor. She keeps logs. However, she has to sign NDAs to work with several of her clients. How would that work with this ordinance?
Released through a warrant. Only.
Is HIPAA involved at all in any of the treatment we're talking about tonight?
I will defer to the county attorney.
Natalie Johnson with the County Attorney's Office. No, massage therapists are not covered entities under HIPAA.
Councilman Raymond, one more question, then we're going to get back to other people in the queue, and you can click back in, okay?
I'm prepared to just finish sharing my thoughts on the piece of legislation. Something else that's really discouraged me tonight is hearing people say that this is going to solve the problem and end the problem. Unfortunately, this is going to move the problem. I understand that all we have control over is this area. And absolutely, let's do the very best that we can to protect people from being abused in this area. Let's not pretend that we're solving it or ending it when we're moving it as little as 2 miles that way or that way or that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Councilman Leninger, you're next to my queue, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of amendments possibly and some questions to the county attorney. Is there already a moral turpitude clause in the licensure of massage therapists by the state?
I'm not sure if because this ordinance doesn't regulate massage therapists, and so I'm not sure what massage therapists are or not required to do under their state licensure, other than what's in the statute, and that's not in the statute, so it may be in the application, I'm not sure. But this would be for the applicant of the facility, not necessarily a massage therapist.
All right. My next question, a massage therapy practice that was operating in the Medical Arts Building on Eastern Parkway, where there is a lobby with multiple entrances. According to page 10, 115.177B, that would be requirements on access. Customers of the massage facility shall enter and exit the massage facility only through the main entry door. How would main entry door be defined if with a medical practice that had multiple entrances?
Sure, well, I consider it to be the main entry door to the massage facility, so not necessarily the building, because there are, massage facilities all over the city that rent space out of buildings, and so it would be the entrance to the actual facility.
Okay. I want to offer one amendment. That is section 115.173A, 4, little a.
Can you give us the page, sir?
3, that's page 7. I was coming to that, sir. This is a list of reasons to denial of application based on conduct. One of these, an offense involving narcotics, dangerous drugs, or dangerous weaponry that amounts to a felony. In section B beneath it, that you may issue a license to a person convicted of any of these crimes described in subsections 3, 1 through 3 of this section if it finds that such conviction occurred in the last 10 years prior to that date. And I'm glad that we have this in here, concerning ourselves with second chances for members of our community who have been involved with illicit activity in the past and they've moved on with their lives. However, I would like to offer an amendment to state instead in section 3 there, an offense involving narcotics, dangerous drugs, or dangerous weaponry that amounts to a felony excluding cannabis. frankly, we've had changes in society's view of the use of cannabis. We have had action at the state level that changes that. I think it's wrong to punish people that if they 8 years ago were caught with an amount of pot that rose to the level of felony, which is a ludicrously small amount, as a matter of fact, in terms of personal use, that we are prohibiting them from engagement in a legitimate activity. So I would make this amendment.
Is there a second? Fantastic. We've got the proposed amendment before us being section, on page 7, section 4A, subpart III, with a comma at the end of that sentence saying excluding cannabis. Is that correct, Councilman Leninger?
Yes.
Then a period after that. So, discussion, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. The example given was the personal consumption of, let's call it, a very small amount of cannabis. I didn't hear any exclusion, and again, why I would just vote no on any amendment, because this is not being thought through, about somebody who was moving 10 pounds of cannabis and dealing it to children. So there's, with no comment on the amount or the type and all this stuff, unless you wanted to get specific to the specific state statute that prohibits, or that made, a small amount of possession for personal use a felony, beyond that, I would not be for it, because there are plenty of people with felony convictions for the trafficking of cannabis that, obviously would want running one of these facilities. Thank you.
Councilman Leninger, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree. This is not a perfect way for us to legislate. I think it would have been better for us to send it back to committee or to hold it so that we can work through these issues and be more exact in our language. If we want to, really have a scalpel to who we're excluding, that would have been the way to do it. But we don't have that option. We're doing it now. And I think, frankly, that the best way to do it without getting into another hour of maybe needing a recess to get the county attorney to give us a little bit of research, I think let's just, for this purpose, we'll exclude cannabis.
Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would support this if you could determine an amount of cannabis, no more than, pick a number.
You pick a number.
I don't know. I'm not the one coming up with the amendment.
Let's say an ounce.
Well, then, are we proposing an amendment to the amendment? That's what's going on here, folks. Is there a second on the amendment to amend it to say an ounce?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Reed is.
Point of order, Mr. President, to keep this a little cleaner, since it sounds like the original amender seems cool with this, if they and the seconder would adopt it, we don't have to amend to amend. We can just start with the original amendment.
Are we okay with that?
Let's go through the process. Let's have
Okay.
the amendment to the amendment, and then we'll come back to it.
Okay, so we have the proposed amendment to the amendment being page 7, section 4A, subpart III, and this being excluding cannabis in the amount of 1 ounce. Is that correct? Cannabis in the amount of 1 ounce. Is there any discussion on this amendment to the amendment? Councilman Hudson.
Is 1 ounce of cannabis a felony? I don't know.
Nope.
That's what it says here, and that amounts to a felony. I don't think an ounce of cannabis is a felony.
Natalie Johnson with the County Attorney's Office. I unfortunately do not know what counts as a felony when it comes to marijuana possession off the top of my head, but I'm happy to try to figure out before the end of this meeting.
Yeah.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
I recall, seemed like I was first year on the council. Did we vote for something that said if you were caught with 1 ounce or less? Can somebody jar that was yours? What?
Councilman Pizzatini, you want to respond to that?
Yes, to clarify, we passed a resolution that deemed, yes, we did. We can't decriminalize. We didn't pass an ordinance. We passed a resolution that made the possession of marijuana the lowest law enforcement priority. That, okay, but it did not, because we don't, only the state criminalizes
We
possession and
passed
all that.
something-
So we made it the lowest law enforcement priority.
We passed something that talked about if you're caught with an ounce or less in your car, if the county attorney could please refer to that. It was an ordinance.
While the county attorney is looking at that, JP, you've asked to?
Yes, Mr. President. As a matter of fact, it's difficult for us to be able to say what amounts to a felony possession amount of cannabis because it depends. For example, a second or a subsequent conviction can come that is going to escalate previous misdemeanor convictions, misdemeanor amounts of possession, that turns it into felony. I think in the interests of moving this forward, the cleanest solution is for us to just exempt cannabis from this clause. Because the fact of the matter is we are not going to come up with an amount that's going to make sense in the law because frankly, our laws don't make sense.
Well, I think that we've got, pursuant to what you requested, you said you wanted the process to play out.
Yeah, I'm
And
arguing
so we
against the
have the amendment to the amendment, proposed amendment, presently before us, which is 1 ounce, okay?
Yeah,
Is there any further discussion
against the
on the amendment to the amendment where it added in 1 ounce? Any further discussion? I'm not seeing anyone. Let's do a roll call vote, Madam.
And then vote yes on the main motion.
Councilmember Parrish Wright?
Is this yes to the amendment on no cannabis or the 1 ounce or both?
1 ounce of cannabis.
And then we'll come back to
Okay,
the main
yes.
motion. I'm voting no.
Okay.
I think we should vote no on the amendment to the amendment.
I'm sorry, what was your answer, ma'am?
No then.
Okay.
No.
Councilmember Reno Weber
No.
and Councilmember Winkler. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, you're not there. Okay. Councilmember Benson? Mr. President, you have 4 yes votes and 20 no votes.
The proposed amendment to the amendment fails. We now have the amended, or the proposed amendment before us, which just simply says cannabis. Is there any discussion on the words excluding cannabis added to 4A subpart III? No, seeing no one else for discussion on that, the end result is, Madam Clerk, open a roll call for that vote.
Councilmember Parrish Wright?
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber?
Yes.
And Councilmember Winkler?
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 12 yes votes, 13 no votes, and 1 present vote.
Okay, sounds like, run that by me again.
12, it failed. 12 yes votes, 13 no votes, and 1 present vote.
The proposed amendment fails. All right, and can you clean out my queue here? I've got Councilwoman Raymond still in here, and now I've got JP in here.
Okay, sorry, sir.
Thank you. You're just keeping me straight. Councilwoman Rui, you're next in my queue, and you have the floor, madam.
All right, thank you very much. Let me see where I was in this. Goodness, we've been through a lot tonight. All right, here we go. So page 14, section 115.187, persons under the age of 18 prohibited on premises. Part A, no persons under 18 may come or remain on the premises of a massage facility as a patron unless they are with a guardian over the age of 21. Now, I asked County Attorney Natalie Johnson about this one, and as she stated, state law requires parental consent in most cases where a minor is seeking medical care, but the law does not state that a guardian must be physically present to give consent. I would like to add as an amendment that unless they're with a guardian over the age of 21, unless you have a signed release to treat unescorted from a parent or guardian. They already have a consent to treat form on the premises. That's already been agreed upon. So I just want something that clearly states that we have many student athletes.
Councilman Rui, can I get some clarification here just?
Yes.
I'm on page 14, 115.187. You're talking
Yes.
about subpart A. No person under the age 18 may come or remain on the premises of massage facilities as a patron unless they are with a guardian over the age of 21. And you were adding in the words "or have a signed release from their guardian"?
Unless they have a signed release, yes. You've got a lot of high school athletes who are coming in here being treated for various aches and pains. And if they have the ability to drive and their parents already know they're going there, I do not see the importance of ensuring that the parent comes if the parent already has a trusted relationship.
So I think what you're suggesting is adding an after age 21 or have a signed release from their parents or guardian.
Okay.
So, because the "or" says you either got somebody there or you got the signed release. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so is that your proposed amendment?
Yes, it is.
Is there a second for that? There's a second for that. We've got the amendment before us of section 115.187, subsection A, adding "or a written consent form by the parent or guardian." Councilman Piagentini, you got your hand up.
Yeah, again, against, unless this is significantly drafted in a far more comprehensive way. Again, this comes down to, is this considered a true therapy related to healthcare conditions or not? There are extremely limited circumstances that minors can go to healthcare professionals by themselves. And even within those circumstances, there's a bunch of exemptions, even with parental consent. They have to be of a certain age or have other circumstances. For example, it's an emergency, they're emancipated, et cetera. There are, these illegal operations are popping up near high schools for the purpose of soliciting young teenage boys into them, okay? So I, for one, have no interest in making this easier for young teenage boys to walk in and out of them. And just to back up to something, to sort of circle back on why I'm against this, again, if we're going to treat this like other medical facilities, we need to follow the way the state does this and the federal government does this related to medical facilities. The reason HIPAA doesn't apply is because nobody in the federal government or state considers this medical, okay? So that's why we need to be very careful and follow that and not create, under this circumstance, somebody could get a quote note, who knows who's signing that note, and some teenager is walking in and out of that place. I'm sorry, unless this is drafted in a way that has significant protections that mirror what the state does, allowing this to be open for minors is playing into the criminality that already exists and how this is being marketed to certain demographics. So I think we would need to be against this, albeit, again, if somebody wants to bring the state regulations and then the rigor around those state regulations that apply to medical facilities, then we could talk about that. Thank you.
Councilman Rui.
Okay. So, Councilman Piagentini, would it be acceptable if something were added in there to the effect that this parent or guardian signs it in the presence of the licensed massage therapist? Would that be acceptable?
We're just, I heard the president say, go ahead and answer, Councilman Piagentini. So what I would say is, again, how do you go about that process? You say they're in the presence. Says who? Do they have a copy of their license, birth certificate that certifies they're their parent? What is this process that they are the parent or guardian, and who is saying that other than some random adult's attestation? And look, that's coming from a person who has adopted children, right? Now, luckily for me, I adopted them at birth. Their birth certificates have my name on it. So it's very simple for me to prove guardianship. That is not the case in these very complex situations. I have situations within, that I know of fostering, there's all kinds of other guardianship scenarios that are very complicated, and proving that you are the guardian is actually quite a fraught thing. I think getting into that is very weird. It is not abnormal. I mean, I've had teenage children who had to get physical therapy, who were athletes, and I went with them. As a matter of fact, I would think it was quite weird that I would let this child go into a back room with an adult and let them do things to them without me being allowed, or their mother for that matter, since I have daughters, and not one of us be allowed to be there. I would think that'd be wholly inappropriate. So, no, I think we need to be very careful about this, and I would reject the amendment. Thank you.
Councilman Linenger.
I agree with Councilman Piagentini that it is pretty difficult for us to ascertain whether or not someone is acting legitimately in the role of guardian or parent in these cases. I would say that it's actually impossible for us to make sure that the people attending with the minors, as the legislation is written, are in fact legitimately the parents. I would ask anyone to tell me how we're going to prove that in light of the fact that many minors do not have government-issued ID, many parents do not share home address or last name with their children, despite still having parental rights. I think that there would be no way for us to prove whether or not the person in attendance with someone is necessarily the parent to any degree of certainty, any more than what has been proposed.
Councilman Piagentini.
Thank you. With the exception of you would have to walk into the facility, we have already established that all entrances to the facility must have a camera, and it is illegal to wear a mask in the city of Louisville. So you'd be walking in, the camera would be seeing you, and if there were a question afterwards about that person not being a guardian, you would have photographic evidence of who the perpetrator was. Under this circumstance, under nobody's supervision, and even if it was, and you can't put it under the therapist's supervision, they are not, they're not going through the process of a notary, for example, but you could have a signed note from God knows who, and a minor just walk in and get that service. At least if they're being accompanied by an adult. Yes, I don't 100% know that you are their parent. Heck, in my case, I don't look like my children. Like I said, they're adopted. But at least when I'm walking in, that person can make a visual identification of me. They have security cameras. We required it. And if there is an issue after the fact, then that can be adjudicated. And there's evidence of who it was. Thank you.
Councilman Linenger.
In the same vein, if we had record keeping of the note, wouldn't we be able to ask the parent, is this their signature? Did you allow this? When the parent comes back and says no, now we have proof that there was a crime that was committed.
Except, again, 16-year-olds can drive, so under what circumstance, the parent doesn't have to show up. The therapist would never have to talk to the parent under this amendment.
In both cases, we are discussing investigation of the crime ex post facto when you're talking about we'll be able to look at the photographic evidence of the people walking in with the child. I think in both cases we have established that ahead of entering the facility, in neither case are we able to prove that the person is giving legitimate permission.
I'll just wrap it up by saying I'm not in favor of making it easier for minors to use these facilities by themselves. That's what it is.
After working in healthcare and emergency services for over the last 20 years, as minors would come in unsupervised, we had to, with another adult, they had to have a notarized letter. So there was legit letter documentation that we would file that it was a notarized letter that they are acting as guardian for the child.
Anyone else? Councilman Reed.
Thank you.
Hold on a second. Councilwoman Parrish Wright, were you trying to speak?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, well then I'm going to give you the floor, and Councilman Reed will have it after you.
Thank you. I know you said to yell. It's hard to chime in online. I just want to say, just getting back to Councilwoman Rui's original point of this amendment, it makes sense for the people that need it, the young people. And just today, while I'm traveling, my sons needed their physicals done, and I just gave verification over the phone, even though I had submitted like a sign, and they got those physicals done at JCPS. And I've already submitted a form before, so signatures can be verified, as Councilman Leonard just said. There's just a lot of unknowns with this, with the legislation, and with how people are accessing it. And that's why people are so worried about putting this in place without having all these pieces worked out. So I support Councilwoman Rui's amendment, because there are unique situations where this would apply. Now, my sons are of age to be able to drive, but neither one of them have a government ID. So they needed my verbal consent. I've written notes that I've used for consent. I mean, this stuff has been happening for a very long time. I just say, let's support this amendment. Let's try to get through this, because I'm really trying to find a way to support this, as I think that the work that Councilman Hudson has done is admirable, just as everyone else who works on legislation over time. But we're at this place because there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of things that we're trying to go after bad actors who don't ask for permission, who don't care about a note, who don't care about any of those things. They're still doing it. And this has the potential to hurt good actors more than the bad actors is getting into it. So let's work through these amendments. I support this with Councilwoman Rui, and really ready to vote on this. Thank you.
Councilman Reed, you're next in my floor queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that with regard to Councilwoman Parrish Wright, that application probably, or that verification of signature probably went through a teacher who was able to verify your identity. Is that not correct?
Am I allowed to answer?
Yes, ma'am, please do.
It was actually the nurse's office that called me. I have not met the doctor or the nurse practitioner at the school. That's who called me today.
But somebody that knew you and knew of you had met you.
Somebody that, I guess they asked my son to give them the number to their parent, and then they called me and I verified over the phone.
Okay. So, I mean, personally, I think that it would be, a little distasteful to think of anyone under 18 not having permission from a legal guardian to be, for lack of a better term, touched by a massage therapist. So, I'm not in favor of this. I understand where she's coming from, Councilwoman Rui, but as a father with 2 children, both grown, if they were 10 and 12 or 15 years old, that's something I couldn't live with. Thank you.
Anyone else on this proposed amendment by Councilwoman Rui? I'm not seeing any hands, and so, Madam Clerk, let's have a roll call vote on Councilwoman Rui's amendment of 115.187A.
Councilmember Parrish Wright?
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber?
Yes.
Councilmember Winkler?
No.
I'm sorry, you said no? No, okay. Councilmember Shanklin, I'm sorry.
We're voting on the amendment of section, on page 14, section 115.187A. Essentially, it presently reads, prior to the amendment, no person under the age of 18 may come or remain on the premises of a massage facility as a patron unless they are with a guardian over the age of 21. The amendment is to add a comma or have a written consent by a parent or guardian.
Okay. Mr. President, you have 8 yes votes, 17 no votes, and 1 present vote.
The amendment fails. Now, I've got no one in my general queue. Is there any other amendments regarding this piece of
Mr.
legislation?
President.
What's that?
I was supposed to be in the general queue, but it went so long.
No,
I
that's
don't know
okay,
what happened.
ma'am. If you'd like the floor, you have the floor.
My general question, I think a lot of my colleagues covered some of my concerns, was being put in a, we've been told don't name call, don't do this, don't do that, you'll lose support and all of that. But to be told that if we vote against this, that we are in support of human trafficking as a sexual assault survivor, that's really hard for me to receive. There are just nuances and things with this legislation, and legitimate people who run these businesses have those concerns. I don't have the knowledge base that some of my colleagues have. They know the ins and outs, the camera, the flashing the money. I don't know that stuff unless I go watch a movie about it. But I do know that these things are happening, and these criminals are not going to go through these regulatory processes and they're in that way. And I think that this is really hurtful to the people who are trying to do the right thing. I think it's well intentioned. Nobody is arguing well intentioned. Nobody is supportive of sex trafficking. And I just want to make sure we're clear about that. I see a lot of contradictions with this council saying, oh, we don't want to do amendments on the floor. Oh, we don't want to do resolutions. Oh, we don't want to call names and do things like that. But other people do it. They just use different words to say it. And it's very disrespectful to put us in boxes because we don't agree with legislation. Okay. I don't do any of you like that. Either you agree or you don't. But I don't characterize you as people who just don't care or being negligent of a very serious crisis our city is dealing with. I don't think that this is going to solve that crisis. I do think that we should do something as a body, but I think it needs to be more collective, more intentional, in that way that we take the time to give it what it needs. So that is why I was a no, because I wanted to see it. But I did agree to the amendments because they show that Mr. Hudson, Councilman Hudson was movable on some of that. But there's still some pieces that can hinder people getting what they need. And that's why I am a no. But I wanted to be on record to say my no is not that I agree with human trafficking. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, madam. Anyone else on discussion on the present amended version of this ordinance? Councilman Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted,
Hold on a second, Mr. Reed. I got Councilwoman McCraney, I've got Councilwoman Chapel, and then I've got you on the general queue. I apologize.
but I was in the middle of a great thought.
Well, you know,
I
you could
can
hold that
yield.
thought.
I will yield to the gentleman,
Well, no, we'll go to Councilwoman Chapel.
to the gentle lady.
Thank you so very much. Glad to see this queue filled back up because I don't have to go to the bathroom or anything. Part of the problem. But I'm going to go back and revisit section 115.181 on page 11. I would like to offer an amendment that we strike section or item A4, type of service received. And when it comes to section C, I would like to change that to the register of patrons may be inspected by an authorized code enforcement, by an authorized, I'm kind of struggling here because there's so many people, I don't know if it should be Public Works, Codes of Regs, or ABC, but may be inspected by an authorized officer pursuant to an administrative or judicial warrant. Records shall be kept for no more than 6 months from time of retrieval. That's not the word. From the time that you get the record, that the code enforcement officer gets the record, they have 6 months.
I'm lost. Can you tell me again what
Sure.
your proposed amendment is?
We're on page 11.
She's talking about
so,
section 115.181, but then what subsection were you talking about?
Item C, the register of patrons may be inspected by an authorized blank of Louisville Metro government pursuant to an administrative or judicial warrant. All records shall be destroyed or deleted 6 months after they've been obtained.
Hold on one second.
Yes, the type
on.
of service received, so item A4.
So you're proposing to strike A4 in its entirety,
Yes.
and then you're proposing to add a sentence at the end of C. That sentence being, all records will be destroyed or deleted 6 months after being obtained.
Yes.
Okay.
But I also am wondering, should it be inspected by an authorized code officer? Is that a code enforcement officer?
This is Natalie Johnson with the County Attorney's Office. So authorized code officer is actually defined in the definition section of the ordinance, and that includes any officer of LMPD, ABC, Department of Public Health and Wellness, codes and regs, or planning and zoning.
It's a lot of hands in the pot, but I'll leave it as is.
Okay, is there a second for her proposed amendment? We have a second. First in the queue regarding this being the floor queue is Councilman Piagentini.
Again, I'm flabbergasted by this desire to try to destroy records. Standard requirements for all Kentucky medical facilities to retain records at least 5 years. If you want to make it 5 years, feel free to make it 5 years. But if we're going to consider this a serious therapeutic facility doing serious therapeutic work, then they should be required to go along with what other therapeutic type facilities have to do related to records retention, and that in the state of Kentucky is as a minimum of 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wearily rise to correct my colleague from across the room. This is not an amendment that is regulating how long the business will keep these records, but rather how long the records will remain in possession of the government following the warrant. Councilwoman Chappell is merely clarifying that the government shall release or destroy the records 6 months after action. And type of service would be removed. Thank you.
Sure. Just in this entire conversation that's gone on for so long, the whole time, this isn't a medical facility. This isn't a medical facility. HIPAA doesn't apply. This isn't a medical facility. It's not regulated at the federal level. This is not a medical facility. But now we want to say it is a medical facility, and you need to keep your records for 5 years. I think we need to decide, is it or isn't it? I would say yes, and if you want to also accept that it is a medical facility, maybe I would be amendable with that acknowledgement to extending it to 5 years from 6 months, even though I feel a little icky about that.
Councilman Piagentini, you're
Sorry,
next in my floor
I
queue.
think there's confusion. So can you elaborate on your amendment again to help out with the confusion?
Sure.
Thank you.
If we are going to admit in this body that these are medical facilities, then I will be willing to extend those records to 5 years to be in conjunction with healthcare law if we are stating that these are facilities that practice healthcare.
So, sorry, just to clarify, can you restate the amendment? I'm sorry, I didn't mean you to restate your point, because I think there is maybe differentiation between how I'm understanding your amendment and what Councilman.
I've been
Lopez-
keeping track of the amendment. I'm going
Thank
to
you.
restate the
Yes.
amendment, okay?
Thank you, Mr.
The
President.
amendment is on page 11.
Gotcha.
Section 115.181. She is under subsection A, capital A, she wants to strike part 4, which is strike type of services rendered. She wants that stricken. The next part of this proposed amendment is under section C of that section, where she's adding an end sentence, a new sentence at the end of section C, saying all records will be destroyed or deleted 6 months after being obtained, period. That's her amendment.
Deleted for possession of the government. Okay, sorry. So thank you. So we're talking about two different separate things, record retention by the facility versus record retention by law enforcement. There, again, I would say there are already state statutes in place that cover how long law enforcement can retain records unless there is an ongoing investigation. So again, I would defer to the statutes that already exist when there's an ongoing investigation. And quite frankly, there are actually state statutes that have required, that require the elimination of records under a shorter period of time than 6 months if there's no active investigation. So I'm just saying, I think that is something that I would also be against, because again, we need to defer to what the state does on this, and we're just going to be doing it for one industry. That doesn't make sense to me.
JP, you're up.
I would like to ask the county attorney, specifically in the case of the register of patients that would be obtained by a code officer pursuant to an administrative or judicial warrant, when currently would they be required to delete or remove that record from possession of the government?
Natalie Johnson with the County Attorney's Office. I think it would depend on what the warrant said. So most of the times warrants will actually be explicit on what records you're obtaining, why you're obtaining them, how long you're obtaining them. So I think it would depend on the warrant, but under law, I think that would just be the records retention policy.
Finished?
I'll get back in the queue if I need to.
Jennifer?
Sure. So it was said that there's already stipulations for how long a law enforcement officer is allowed to keep records. But I do want to go back to this definition of authorized code officer. Last time I checked, no one with the public health and wellness was a law enforcement officer. And then also planning and zoning. There's no one in that department, but also we don't have a department called planning and zoning. We have a committee called planning and zoning. So that should probably be cleaned up to say the Department of Planning, but I'm not offering that amendment. But I would like to also add that I would like to add securely stored to item C.
Well, that would be an amendment to your amendment. And I think JP would tell us, let's play that out.
What?
To add secured location, that was not in your amendment earlier. And so the question now is,
She could withdraw.
and then we get a second? I'm fine with that, but. Okay, hold on a second here. I'm trying to keep
I think
everyone.
I can clear this up.
Hold on.
Okay.
So let me, where do you want the word secured location?
The register of patrons may be inspected by an authorized code enforcement officer pursuant to an administrative or judicial warrant and shall be
In a secured location?
and shall be stored in a secure location and released or destroyed within 6 months of obtainment.
So, just so we're all clear, you want Part 4 of A stricken still, correct? You want Part C to be read as the register of the patrons may be inspected by the authorized code officer pursuant to an administrative or judicial warrant and stored in a secured location, period. All records will be destroyed or deleted 6 months after being obtained.
Sure.
Okay. Next in my queue, I believe, is Councilman Hudson.
Yeah, I think I can add a little bit of clarity on the code officer language. There is a companion ordinance that was meant to come to Safety Committee at the same time as this one, but we simply ran out of time to bring it. I would ask County Attorney if she could describe that companion ordinance that defines code officer.
Code officer is defined in this ordinance, sir.
Well, it expands the definition to include ABC, code and regs.
Well, I'm going to defer to the county attorney on this, but if there's a definition in this ordinance, definition in another ordinance would not apply, the definition in this ordinance would apply. Am I correct on that, madam?
That is correct. That's correct.
So the end result is it doesn't matter what the companion ordinance says as a definition. We're dealing with the definition in here as the sole definition as relates to this document.
I'll admit to being wrong. I did not provide clarity.
Okay. All right, so who's next in my queue? JP's hand went up first.
I'd like to move to divide the question between the two sections of the amendment.
What do we want look to divide?
I would like to consider the two sections of the amendment separately.
Oh, so you,
between
the striking subpart 4 and then separating subpart C.
Yes,
That's made in form of a motion, right?
yes.
And I hear a second from somebody? Second, okay. On this one, we can go for a voice vote, okay? All those in favor of separating this amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
I think in the end, the chair has as a no.
I'll abide by the chair's decision.
Okay. So, who's up next? I'm not seeing anybody with their hand up or chiming in. So at this point, what's that? That's what I'm getting ready to do here. On Jennifer's present amendment, let's open the roll.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber,
Yes.
Councilmember, one second, I didn't get that. Winkler,
No.
one second. Mr. President, you have 9 yes votes and 17 no votes.
The amendment fails. Okay, so I'm going back to my queue, and in my queue, I have Councilman Reed in the top of my general queue.
I lost that great train of thought that I had earlier. But if somebody else has I'm not inviting another amendment, but if somebody else has something to offer, go ahead. I'll just yield my time.
Councilman Leninger, you're next in my queue.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to speak to the legislation as amended. I think that it's really unfortunate what we've arrived at tonight. We are now several hours into considering this legislation. We've had procedural votes. We've had discussion on the floor of numerous clauses of this item. I think it is clear that this legislation was not ready to be before this body. I think it was clear that debate should not have been cut off at the committee level, and people should have been allowed to ask their questions, some questions which can only be asked at the committee level, such as asking for a statement of financial impact. I think it's unfortunate that despite all of these issues with the legislation, we could not agree to let's send it back or let's hold it, let's work on something that we can come together on and we can make this great legislation. Again, this is not, in the grand scheme of the legislation, controversial at all. Okay, a cured version of this legislation would have passed this body 26-0, unquestionably. We had specific issues with this legislation. And the fact of the matter is that the sponsor of the legislation had the votes. The sponsor of the legislation had the votes to move it tonight, regardless of concerns. I don't think that's a good way for us to operate as a body, particularly, again, on a piece of legislation that, when addressed, is not ideologically divisive. It's not controversial at all. No one in this room, whether we're on this side of the barrier to the public or on the other, is in favor of human trafficking. Literally no one in this room is in favor of human trafficking. We could have worked together on this. We could have produced a piece of legislation that we would have all stood behind a podium and cheered about. We are still not at that point with this legislation. I think it's really unfortunate, and I want to apologize to the members of the public, particularly the people who are going to be impacted by this admittedly imperfect piece of legislation when it passes, which it will no doubt pass. I want to apologize. Thank you.
Next in my queue is Councilwoman McCraney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask the county attorney to, if she would, and I apologize if this has been done, but could you clarify for me the term or the difference between massage establishments and massage therapists?
Natalie Johnson with the County Attorney's Office. So the massage therapist is just the person that holds the massage license. The massage facility is actually the massage business. So this ordinance regulates the massage business, but not the actual person.
So in section 115.196, with the exceptions, where it says the subchapter does not apply to the following establishments or classes of persons. In C, licensed massage therapists who are not operating a massage facility. Could it read licensed massage therapists who are providing massage services in accordance to the KRS? Shall not be considered massage establishments.
So are you asking that basically if there's a massage therapist running massage businesses, those businesses aren't considered massage facilities under the ordinance?
Yes.
I mean, I think that there's no legal issue why you couldn't do that, but I think there would likely be enforcement issues.
I'm sorry, I did not hear you because I was distracted by my colleagues who are not paying attention to the matter at hand that's so important. We've got to get past this legislation, but we can only do that if we are hearing each other and we're paying attention. Thank you.
The councilman from District 7 is asking you all to please keep your voices down.
Yes, so I don't think there's a legal issue with adding that exclusion. But there may be an enforcement issue, enforcing the intent of the ordinance, which, yeah.
I have no idea what you just said.
You want to clarify it for her?
Yeah, so there's not a legal issue with adding that exclusion, and there's no legal reason why you couldn't do it. And I don't know that I'm, the one to speak to this, but I think it would cause enforcement issues and kind of go away from the intent of the ordinance. Because essentially, that would exclude pretty much every massage facility from being regulated by the ordinance. Because it is my understanding, from just what I've gained being in the task force, is that even illicit massage facilities will typically have licensed massage therapists, at least one on staff or one who owns the facility.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next in my queue, I've got, in this order, I've got Councilman Rui, I've got Councilman Reed, Councilman Benson, and then Councilman Owen. Councilwoman Rui, you have the floor.
In the interest of it's been a very long night, and I think a lot of us are having trouble understanding and focusing. I think we're all tired. I'd like to call the question.
Is there a second on calling the question? Question's been called. All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
I think in the call of the chair, I think the noes have it. Unless somebody wants a roll call. Roll call on calling the question, Madam Clerk, please.
Councilmember Parrish Wright?
Is this for the amendment or the original vote?
It's calling the question on the vote.
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Councilmember Winkler.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 16 yes votes and 10 no votes.
The calling of the question fails. All right, so I'm back to my cue. Two-thirds. Two-thirds on calling the question. So we were 2 votes shy. All right, so next in my queue is going to be Councilman Reed, then Councilman Benson, then Councilman Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out that Councilman Hudson did give everybody an off-ramp by offering the task force as a means to submit questions and amendments so that we could have avoided all of this. And to Councilman Leninger's questions or issues with this going on as long as it has, I would suspect that this isn't the first time that this is going to happen in your council career. We've had some debates going back my 9 years up until 2, 3 a.m., so this is nothing. But anyway, so the people that got to offered their amendments, and hopefully we can take a vote quickly. Thank you.
Councilman Benson, you're next in my queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to be pretty quick. Councilman Hudson, every time we come in the caucus, talks about how much time he spent on working and talking to the people and trying to figure out how to make this good for the people who are in business. I remember one time I sat in the chair up there and they wanted to talk about the food trucks, and they were going to make it so bad, we're going to really regulate these trucks, but these people are going to go out of business. But that's okay, we're going to fix it. And so I'm always wanting to listen to the people who are in business. And so, but not till tonight, I found out that there was an ordinance already that's really pretty strong. It can really go after everybody. But Councilman Hudson said, this will be better for the people who are in business, and we can help them. Hey, to me, we need to ask the police, will you, if we pass this, will you all enforce it? Because you haven't been enforcing the one that's already in right now. I mean, if Kevin remembers, probably 20 years ago, we worked really hard on a noise ordinance. All these people making all the noise and boom boxes and bull. You know what? The police decided they weren't going to enforce it. So we wasted time. And so almost we should say, Mayor, if we pass this ordinance, would you all enforce it? Police, would you enforce it? I mean, I don't like all that crap. Are we going to waste all of our time trying to make something better for the humans in our community? Or are we going to say, let me have a little more time here. Let me stand up in front here and tell everybody who I am. This is the first time I've talked, and I know it doesn't make any sense, but sometimes I get tired of listening. The people go on and on. Are you really here to help somebody, or are you trying to grandstand? I won't tell you what I think. So, sorry, Mr. President.
No, nothing to apologize, Stuart. The reality was it did make sense. So it was, it was good. It made sense. So, all right. Next,
I withdraw.
Withdraw. I've got no one left in my queue. No one raising their hands. All right. We have the amended ordinance before us. Madam Clerk, please open the roll.
Councilmember Parrish Wright.
The amended ordinance.
The final vote, ma'am.
Oh, okay. No.
Councilmember Reno Weber.
No.
Councilmember Winkler.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 21 yes votes and 4 no votes.
The amended ordinance is adopted. The next item of business is new business. As you leave the chambers, do so quietly as new business is being read. If you want to make a statement after new business, stick around and let me know, okay? Madam Clerk, will you read the new business items 48 through 65 into the record?
The following legislation was assigned to Appropriations Committee. Item 48, an ordinance appropriated $6,500 from neighborhood development funds in the following manner in